A 1967 rape and murder case in Bristol remained unsolved for 58 years until DNA technology finally identified the killer. In 1967, 21-year-old Louisa Dunne was found brutally murdered in Easton, Bristol. This case would become one of the UK's oldest cold cases, a stain on the Avon and Somerset police's history. For nearly 6 decades, detectives chased leads and re-examined evidence, but the killer remained elusive. The investigation spanned generations, with new techniques and technologies offering fresh hope. This is the story of how forensic genetic genealogy finally brought a killer to justice and provided answers to a grieving family. Louisa Dunne, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her, was murdered in her own home in 1967. The crime scene was horrific, indicating a violent struggle and a brutal end. Initial investigations focused on local suspects, but the evidence was insufficient to secure a conviction. The case quickly went cold, leaving Louisa's family with unanswered questions and a profound sense of loss that would endure for decades. The investigation into Louisa's murder was reopened multiple times over the years. Detectives meticulously reviewed the original case files, looking for overlooked clues. In 2017, advancements in DNA technology offered a new possibility. Samples from the crime scene were reanalyzed, yielding a partial DNA profile. However, this profile was not yet in any databases, and it would take years of painstaking work to build upon it. The breakthrough came with the advent of forensic genetic genealogy. This cutting-edge technique involves uploading DNA profiles to public genealogy databases, allowing investigators to find potential relatives of the perpetrator. By building family trees and cross-referencing information, detectives could narrow down the suspect pool. This method was revolutionary, offering a way to solve crimes where traditional DNA databases had failed. After extensive genealogical research, a prime suspect emerged, Ryland Headley, a man who had lived in the Bristol area at the time of the murder. Although he was elderly, investigators pursued the lead. A DNA sample was obtained from Headley, which was then compared to the partial profile recovered from the crime scene. The results confirmed a match, linking him directly to Louisa Dunne's murder. In 2025, Ryland Headley, then 92 years old, was arrested and charged with the murder of Louisa Dunne. The evidence, bolstered by the DNA match and genealogical research, was overwhelming. This case, which had haunted Bristol for over half a century, was finally solved. The arrest brought a measure of closure to Louisa's family, though the pain of her loss would never fully disappear. The first layer is context. Every documentary story begins before the moment people remember. There is a setting, a chain of decisions, and a public reaction that shapes how the event is understood. In the case of Louisa Dunne 1967 cold case murder, the important thing is not only what happened, but why the surrounding details made people pay attention. That is where the story begins to move from a simple summary into something more useful. It asks us to look at timing, location, pressure, and the way one moment can represent a much larger pattern. The second layer is what people often misunderstand. A single image or short clip can feel complete, but it usually leaves out the forces around it. Viewers see the result, not the build-up. They see the most dramatic frame, not the quiet details that made it possible. That gap matters because it changes the meaning of the story. When we examine Louisa Dunne 1967 cold case murder carefully, we are not just asking what is visible. We are asking what is missing from the first impression. Then comes the turning point. This is where the story stops being only about one scene and starts pointing to a bigger question. Why did this particular moment stand out? Why did people share it, debate it, or return to it later? The answer is usually not one simple fact. It is a combination of emotion, uncertainty, and recognition. People respond when a story feels specific, but also familiar enough to connect to something they already care about. Another important detail is the human tendency to look for a clean conclusion. We want a final answer, a clear lesson, and a single explanation that ties every loose end together. But strong documentary stories often resist that. They leave us with evidence, competing interpretations, and a reminder that public understanding is always incomplete. That does not make the story weaker. It makes it more honest. So what value can we take from Louisa Dunne 1967 cold case murder? The value is not just the event itself. It is the pattern around it. It shows how quickly attention forms, how easily context disappears, and how important it is to ask better questions before accepting the easiest version of a story. That is why stories like this continue to matter after the first wave of attention fades. In the end, Louisa Dunne 1967 cold case murder remains worth examining because it sits between fact and interpretation. We can see enough to understand why it matters, but not always enough to close the case completely. And that open space is where documentary storytelling becomes powerful. It does not tell us what to think. It gives us a clearer way to look. The resolution of Louisa Dunne's murder case highlights the incredible power of modern forensic science. It also serves as a stark reminder that justice can, and sometimes does, prevail, even after decades of waiting. This case demonstrates that no crime is too old to solve, and that the pursuit of truth for victims and their families is a relentless endeavor. Our channel explores more such cases where science and dedication uncover the truth. Explore more solved cold cases on this channel.